What's going on? It's Matt Plapp, and I'm joined by two guests. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second. But the reason I wanted to do this little webinar, we could call it conversation, is because of menus and the importance of them. And about a month ago, I'm talking to a restaurateur who had spent upwards of $1 million on building out the restaurant. And literally 2 days beforehand was on the phone with me on Microsoft Word building a menu. And I thought, wow, it seems like maybe there's something backwards there. I know there's a lot more science to menus than Microsoft Word. And so I've got two guys on here that have a lot more knowledge than I do on the topic. I just want to hear their points of view and maybe throw out some different things I've seen along the way. So first, let's start with Mr. Donald Burns. You're out in Arizona, sunny state, 150 degrees probably right now.
It's actually not that bad today. So I think it's in the 90s. It's not bad.
Okay, that's not bad. That's what it is here. So I guess tell us in
about 93. Seconds,
93. So tell us in about 30 seconds who you are and what you do.
I'm Donald Burns. I'm known as the restaurant coach. Grew up in the industry. Started at 15 like a lot of people, washing dishes for my dad, who was a chef. Trained with him. Owned a couple restaurants. Sold those. Got recruited by Wolfgang Puck. Worked as an executive chef for Wolfgang Puck, and now I've been doing consulting since 2005. Got a couple books out in the market. Got my first book, Your Restaurant Sucks. Second book, Your Restaurant Still Sucks. And my third book, Your Restaurant Culture Sucks. And then I'm done with it.
Hey, Your Restaurant Still Sucks. Read the book again.
You really say. I mean, you didn't get it the first time, then you get the second book. Your Restaurant Still Sucks. So.
Cool. Now let's go over to the other part of the country, up in the Northeast on the East Coast. Roger, what's going on?
Hey, I'm in Portland, Maine. I'm Roger Beaudoin. I'm the president of Restaurant Rockstars. I am a 25-year veteran restaurateur. 25 years ago, I started my first restaurant with no restaurant experience. Call me crazy. Went on to found 4 other high-volume, high-profit concepts and sold all those in 2014 to start a company called Restaurant Rockstars. I've also written a book called Rock Your Restaurant, Game-Changing Guide to Restaurant Finances. I've created something called the Restaurant Rockstars Academy, the Sales Stars Staff Training System. We have a weekly podcast, the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. And just before COVID, I bought another restaurant. Call me crazy.
Good timing.
You are crazy.
Yep, for sure.
So my background, anybody that's watching in the future, it's Matt Plapp, CEO of America's Best Restaurants. We're a restaurant media company and a restaurant marketing company. And we work with restaurants from a couple of different capacities, mainly helping them get visibility and finding consumers that want to eat there weekly. And for me, I'm not an expert when it comes to restaurants. I didn't grow up in the restaurant business. I grew up on the opposite side of the restaurant business. My dad had an insurance company that had a lot of restaurants insured. And so as a kid, I used to joke that mom couldn't cook. And it wasn't that she couldn't cook. It was that my dad was networking with his clients. So we ate out dinner 5 nights a week at restaurants all over Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area. So I was accustomed to being around the restaurant business. And then in the marketing world since 1999, I've worked with restaurants in a marketing capacity. And the one thing that gets me, I like to talk about different topics every month. The one thing that's gotten me lately is menus. I go in some restaurants and they've got like the Chinese restaurant menu where there's 150 choices. I go in some restaurants like Raising Cane's and you can get chicken tenders and French fries and a Coke, which sounds good tonight. It's right near my office here. And then I go in others and, they've got little attention to detail. There's no pictures. There's a lot of pictures. I know there's different engineering with regards to putting prices certain places. So I'll start off with the first question. I'll start with Roger on this one and then go to Donald after that. So I had mentioned earlier that I ran across a restaurant that spent $1 million+ in their build out. They had, this great plan. They had all these cool decorations. They spent a bunch of money on drywall and studs and architects and engineers. And then it's a couple of days before they open and they're on Microsoft Word, creating what to me is the most powerful part of their restaurant when somebody's in the restaurant. Mm-hmm. So talk about, Roger, the process of when you're starting a restaurant, that the menu and what you should do, what you should think about when you're actually starting that versus 2 days beforehand.
Yeah, what you're talking about, I've seen a lot over the years. Restaurants design menus in really strange ways sometimes. They might go down the street to see what their competition is doing, figure out their customers with like similar items. They have absolutely no idea what it costs them to, prepare those dishes from an ingredient standpoint, what their cost is and what their profit is on every item. and maybe they underprice Joe down the street by a quarter. Maybe they charge a little bit more, but it's random, and they could be filling their seats, have a busy restaurant, and still have no idea why their bank account is not growing, simply because they haven't designed a menu for maximum profit. And when I say that, every menu has categories. You know, we've got starters or appetizers, you got burgers and sandwiches, you got soup, salads, you got entrees, you got desserts. These are all categories. And I find that a lot of restaurants have absolutely no idea what their most profitable items are. And, you know, they could tell you all day long, oh, this flies out of the kitchen. My customers love that. They'd kill me if I took that off the menu. And as it turns out, their lowest profit items are the most popular sellers, stealing profit from the higher profit items. I should say stealing sales from the higher profit items. So this is how menu engineering should begin. And then it comes down to costs. It's like they don't cost out their menus, or if they have done it, it's been a long time. They don't regularly keep up with it. And especially now, you know, rising prices and everything on everything we're buying. And even if they've done it, they don't do anything with the data. They have absolutely no idea. So, you know, this is something I specialize in, and I could just tell you stories about restaurants and how much money they lose in potential profit simply because they haven't designed a menu to maximize profit.
And the part you talked about there with the pricing out what they do, it cracks me up, because I was in the boat and RV business for 10 years. And when we got a boat in from Triton Bass Boat Company, we had what it cost,
Right.
and we marked it up, and the markup was based on our overhead as a dealership. And then we had parts that came in from Mercury, and we might get a part that came in from Mercury for $1.99. We didn't mark it up the same as a $30,000 outboard motor. We marked it up. You know, it might get 7 times markup to $9.99 or whatever. But
sure,
I've heard those stories of restaurateurs, and I've seen like the profit. Marcus Lemonis was in a cupcake place one time and said, "What does it cost to make this cupcake?" You're like, "I don't know." Well, how do you have your prices? Well, I based them off the person down the street who sells cupcakes for $4.
How do you know they're making money?
Exactly.
Yeah. Everybody's overhead and expenses are different. And you're paying the kitchen, especially now, we're paying the highest wages this industry has ever seen to the kitchen to make anything and everything on the menu. Why wouldn't you maximize profit in everything you're selling? You need to maximize profit in everything that goes out the door, and train your staff to suggest and sell. You know, those are some of the mistakes that I see operators making.
So Donald, there's a gentleman named Bruce Nelson. I don't know if you've seen him, right? He's got a book on restaurant accounting. He's talks about his restaurants that failed. He runs some restaurants up in Minneapolis area. And he talked about in the book, in a couple interviews I had, he's like, he said, exactly what Roger said. I priced my burgers off of the place down the street that I used to work for. And I come to realize 6 months later that, well, I can't price my menu off that, price off me. Talk about what you see, Donald, in some of those aspects.
Yeah, the same thing that you guys mentioned. You know, a lot of restaurants look at the menu as like an afterthought, where actually the menu actually dictates a lot of how your restaurant's going to operate. It's going to dictate the style of service, it's going to dictate the equipment I have. Nothing worse than getting, you know, and I do a lot, like Roger, I do a lot of consulting for restaurants that are second gen, you know, refurbished, you know, restaurants that shut down. Somebody goes in and they take a menu and they try to plug it into the equipment that's there, which is like trying to take a square peg and put it in a round hole. And it's like they don't understand why it doesn't work. You know, the menu dictates so much stuff. Number one, it's your number one marketing and profitability tool. Number two, it does dictate what kind of equipment you need, you know, in your restaurant, in your kitchen, and also too, what kind of style of service do I need? How many different stations do I need for the line? Another thing I see restaurant owners do, and this is a common thing, is like they come up with this really cool restaurant or a really cool menu. And then they like, I don't understand, man. You know, my tickets are like 45 minutes to an hour. Well, let me see your menu real quick. And then I say, well, just do a real quick here's an easy exercise you can do. Just take your menu, write down every station where those items come off of. And then let's just kind of tally up what's coming off what station. And you'll be shocked how many people like, and I see this at Italian restaurants a lot. Grill, 6 items. Pantry, 6 items. Saute, 27 items. And then you're like, I know exactly why you got 45-minute an hour ticket times. And you got a 6-burner stove. There's no way the guy can keep up. He's not an octopus.
And I remember one of my early days in the restaurant world, marketing-wise, about 10 years ago, from a standpoint that up until that point, I was always on advertising. Well, when it got to like 08, 09, 010, I was getting to consult more, and I would get pulled into meetings. I'll never forget, I was at a restaurant, and the owner had this great idea about something he wanted to offer. And the chef's like, we don't have the ability to do that. Well, why not? It'd be a great seller. Well, it might be a great seller, but we don't have we don't have the machinery. We don't have the kitchen for it. And they fought. I'm thinking the whole time, like, why does this guy just listen to the owner? Yeah. He wants to run the business. And as I became to, get to know things, I'm like, oh, okay, you literally can't do it. It's like, hey, let's brew our own beer. We don't have a brewery.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, things always sound great on the surface, and there's a lot of like dream stuff we'd love to do, but you got to be able to run with the equipment you have and also the team you have. Yeah. It's like, I have a chef background, and I worked with some high-end chefs, worked with Wolfgang Puck. I was a chef owner of a couple of restaurants of my own. I mean, I can go into a restaurant, I can create a very, really complex menu, but unless I want to be back there all the time, I can only go as fast as what my team can execute. And a lot of times we need to like design menus that the team can execute. And then we can build on that. As the team gets more sophisticated, the team gets their techniques down, as the team gets more confidence, team gets your speed, then we can start adding more complex items. But you got to keep it simple to what the team can execute consistently. Yeah. Roger probably tell you about that. I mean,
I absolutely agree. I mean, now is the time that restaurants really need to take a closer look at that menu and simplify, especially when everyone's having such a hard time finding and keeping good kitchen staff, in terms of the prep process and the elaborate, things they have to go through just to put that menu together. And it's inefficient. It's not optimized. And now's the most important time. If they've survived COVID so far, kudos to them if they're still standing. But now it's time to transform the operation, make it as efficient as possible, as profitable as possible. And that's what I would focus in on day in and day out until it happens.
Yeah, I just got back from a visit with a client, and I cut her menu down 50% because I looked at her prep list. She had 100 items on her prep list.
Unbelievable.
That's a busy morning.
How are they getting it done?
Day. She's there at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, still doing prep. I said, do you understand how crazy this is?
So talking about that, because this came up. I was on the road 2 weeks ago with our TV show we share every week. 2 weeks ago, I was with them. We were in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and we stopped at a place called Time Out. And Time Out has 3 menu items. And I loved it. You can literally come in and get mac and cheese. Yeah. You can get their cheddar biscuit chicken sandwich, which by the way was pretty. When I bit it, I knew it was amazing. They take a chicken breast, they rip the top of it off, put it on a homemade biscuit, cheddar, done. Or you can get a cinnamon roll. They have like the same menu. It's open 24 hours a day because on a college campus. And he's like, the guy, kind of a cool story. Eddie, the owner, he opened it when he graduated from Chapel Hill. He wanted to stay in Chapel Hill. Thought I'll open a restaurant. This is 43 years ago, I think he said. And he noticed, being young, that there was nothing open after 2 or 3 o'clock. And there's all these frat kids stumbling down the streets looking for something to eat. Yeah. So he's open 24 hours a day. But one thing he told me is he's like, Matt, we have the same menu. It's like, I think it was 3, maybe there might have been a 4th item on there, but it's like, that's what we make: cinnamon rolls, cheddar biscuits, and mac and cheese. And it's easy to go. A lot of restaurants go the opposite way though, Roger. And they think that, like I was at a burger joint the other day. They had great burgers, and they were also doing pot stickers. They were also doing this Asian item, and it was like, you're a burger place. How does pot stickers fit into here?
That's similar. Just before COVID, I had a client, and it was a busy lunch and dinner steakhouse concept. And believe it or not, they had 81 different menu items across both those menus, the lunch and the dinner menu. Appetizers for lunch, appetizers for dinner, burger, soup, salads for, lunch and dinner, and entrees for dinner. It was unbelievable. They hadn't costed out their menu in about a year and a half. So we did the process. It took forever, of course. And then I showed them what an eye-opener this was. I showed them that over the past 6 months, they lost a potential profit of $183,000 simply because their low profit items were the biggest sellers. The high profit items, they were making $17 and change profit on a seafood dish and like $7 profit on another entree. Why? And the spread was dollars, not cents. It's crazy. So in the short term, there's a couple of things you can do. Obviously, you can adjust portion sizes and make sure you have portion controls in place, because multiple people making the same thing have different size hands, different habits, all that kind of stuff. You need standardized procedures in the kitchen. I'm sure Donald would absolutely, collaborate that. Or you can change ingredients. It's like, go to your suppliers and say, okay, is there anything that I can substitute that's of a comparable quality where the customer won't notice, but it's a lesser price because maybe you bought it in greater volume? I mean, operators aren't, you don't ask, you don't get, right? That's another idea. Raise prices on the most popular dishes, of course. Drop the low profit, low sales items. And then most importantly, once you figure out what the most profitable items are, you got to train your staff to suggest them every table, every time. That's the short-term solution. Then go back to the drawing board and design a menu in each category where the spread difference is cents, not dollars. I mean, that's my recommendation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen and heard a lot about that. I talked to a restaurateur recently who talked about that when he looked at his menu, and he's got a menu item. He's like, Matt, this is our number one seller. If I raise it 20 cents, 30 cents, $1, $2, it's still going to be the number one seller.
Absolutely.
Why, I'm going to keep looking at it. He's like, I change the price all the time. He's like, nobody has ever mentioned that the prices went up every 3 to 4 months the past couple of years, because I adjust prices based on the fact that that's going up, that food cost, but also other things are. And if I can make up for it there a little, I look at it like soft drinks. And the same thing is, I remember when a soft drink was 75 cents a couple of years ago. Now you're like $3, but I don't look. If I get a Coke, I get a Coke. I'm not going, oh my gosh, my Coke went up 25 cents from
I've never asked. I don't think I've ever asked once how much is, oh my God, how much is the soda? You never asked once.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it too, man, about, brands that try to be everything to everybody. And they call it fusion. I call it confusion because, when it's brand confusion. And if you don't think there's power in a small menu, I'll give you one brand, In-N-Out Burger. Yeah.
Burger,
small
fries,
menu,
right?
Same menu they've had since the 50s. And here's the thing. The average In-N-Out location does 4.5 million. Does double what a McDonald's does. An average McDonald's does 2.2 million. An In-N-Out location does 4.5. You don't think there's power in a small menu? Super powerful.
That's a great point.
No, it's huge. And that's right on point, because a lot of places, they think they have to be everything to everybody. And I'll ask this, Donald, of you, because you've got that chef background, is if you've got a chef that can make great burgers or make great chicken sandwiches, or maybe it's a breakfast joint, you're throwing things at them all of a sudden that, hey, I know we're not a breakfast joint, but we're open early. Let's also do a lunch burrito and let's do this. Now you've got a person that might be average making that, and that's the face of your restaurant.
Yeah, look at the restaurants that really, really dominate their niches. Chick-fil-A. Can you get a burger at Chick-fil-A? No. No, not at all. Do you get burritos at Kentucky Fried Chicken? No. No. You stay in your lane, man. You stay in your lane, you dominate that lane. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and it's got to be easier when you're looking like an independent, because I do a lot of restaurants around the country, and a lot of our independents don't have that expertise and guidance from corporate about, hey, this P mix and this item and this item. Yeah. And the temptation is to try and be everything to everybody. It happened in our boat and RV dealership. We grew from 0 to 15 million in annual sales with our family boat and dealership, me and my dad and brother. And early on, we were consignment and used. And then we added new bass boats, and we became the largest bass boat dealership in the country. And friends asked me what happened with our business. One, we got burnt out, but two, it wasn't financially in good shape when the economy crashed in 2008. And I told him, I said, imagine snow on a tree branch. If it's on the inner part of the branches, it's fine. If it's on the trunk, it's fine. When snow starts getting out there and ice gets out there, Roger knows this, the branches crack. What happened with our company was we all of a sudden saw that fishermen also hunt. Let's get Arctic Cat ATVs. Oh, people that have ATVs also camp. Let's get campers. Oh, we got to have motorhomes. You know what? There's got to be pontoons. By the time we got done after 9 years, we had 17 verticals. Went from 1 to 17. And I remember looking at our parts department when we were closing and liquidating, and we had $1 million in parts. I'm like, why do we have $1 million in parts? And the parts guy's like, Matt, he just called me boss. We have 17. We don't need half this crap, but we had to have enough in stock to maybe be able to help the customers. And everybody in the business had become like, nobody was an expert at anything all of a sudden. They were just kind of like, oh, I can do a little bit of everything.
That's quite a story.
Crazy.
And that's, to me, Roger, I think that is like a lot of restaurants, a lot of independents have that temptation. Like I saw one the other day in our area that added pizza. I'm like, you're not a pizza. Like, you got 3 pizza restaurants a block from you that specialize in pizza.
Yeah.
You're a burger and wing joint. Why pizza?
Why?
So it always gets me.
I learned a long time ago, you can't please all the people all the time, and you shouldn't even try.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know? Wow.
And
So,
then, well, and then you talked about menu design. You said that place spends $1 million on their build out, right?
Yeah.
And then they go back in their office and they use a damn Word document to build out their menu. There are so many affordable options out there.
Yep.
I would say, please, if you're using a Word document, first thing you do, take your left hand out, hold your right hand, smack your hand, and say "bad owner." And then the second thing, go get some help.
Yep.
One of my favorite tools is must-have menus. It's an easy to use. It's an online store. They have thousands and thousands of templates. You can easily make a menu. I can make a menu from I've done menus for people in like 40 minutes using a template, a really nice template on must-have menus. I download the PDF with the bleed, take it to the printer, have them print out, and it's a professional-looking menu. Yep. Now it's like, well, Donald, I don't really know how to do all that template stuff. That's like too advanced for me. Okay, let's take it even simpler. Go to Fiverr. Go to Fiverr.com. Go to Upwork. Hire someone, a graphic designer, to do it. And like Fiverr, you can have someone on Fiverr do it for $40. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the one place too that a lot of people overlook. This person called me and was asking me, and I said, and I happen to know him pretty well, and I said, hey, let's call a local printer that more than likely that local printer deals with 30, 40, 50 restaurants, and they have a little insight. And I said, once you get that done, promise me you're going to commit some budget to hire an expert.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you shouldn't be calling me. I'm not a menu guy. I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm like, you spend all this money. There's an RV dealership up the street from here that I used to do some business with, and they had a $40,000 sculpture of a bear, like this wooden bear. But they wouldn't spend $50 on an ad anywhere. But they'll put this bear. Like, I got to have my wooden bear. And I'm like, you spend money on stupid stuff, and you ignore the stuff you need to spend money on.
Yeah, exactly.
When on the marketing, Roger, this is a pet peeve of mine, and I want to kind of know your guys' take on this. But the QR code got its fame from COVID. It was something we used 7-8 years ago, and people kept saying, "What's that weird looking square barcode?" And finally, QR codes are accepted, and restaurants have them everywhere now. And they've got people scanning them and going to a PDF. And my problem with that is that it's not trackable from a trace of retargeting. You can't optimize that PDF. And like, your website should really have some cool pictures, some descriptions, and some movement on it. So talk about what you've seen, Roger, some of the best practices with driving menu traffic out of the restaurant. And I'm going to get some water. By the way, my new water bottle is a growler. This was the first promotion we did.
Hofbrauhaus.
Yeah. We did Hofbrauhaus, Newport, Pittsburgh, and Columbus, and Cleveland's marketing.
Sure, it's water, Matt.
And this was one of our first promotions. We have this new water machine in here, and we got rid of cups. Everybody has their bottles, and I don't have a bottle. So I had this from 7 years ago on my shelf. So it supposedly is clean. So you see me drink it. I'm not tipping it back yet.
Sure, Matt. Sure, it's water.
High octane, right? High octane
water. Yeah.
It's after 5, Matt. You're okay.
So, Roger, what are your thoughts on that with regards to the menus now, some not being in the restaurant, being on the websites and driving traffic from the table to your website, but to a PDF?
Well, I think the website topic is really important because so many restaurant websites are poorly designed. A website for a restaurant should give the customer, the guest, a virtual experience before they even walk in the door of a restaurant. It is, next to the menu, it's probably the most important marketing tool, because it leads to new business, repeat business. If you can bring your experience to life for the customer, the food, the dazzle, the show, the people that work there, bring the experience to life for the customer. Obviously, that combined with online reviews is the strongest marketing, that could ever happen. So many restaurants spend thousands of dollars a year on traditional marketing that you mentioned it earlier, trackable. Everything you do should track the ROI. And otherwise, you're just dumping money out the window. Unless everyone walks in the door and says, hey, Matt, I came in because I saw you on the radio. I heard your commercial. I saw your ad in the newspaper, whatever it is, you can't track the ROI. So it's got to be, trackable. A long time ago, and this is really old school. This probably goes back about 18 years ago, but I wanted to build traffic for my restaurant. And I got the brilliant idea of going out into the local community, because I'm a big believer in cash cows. We didn't talk about that yet, but every restaurant needs to have lots of cash cows on its menu. Just to define that, a cash cow is something that has very high perceived value by the guest. It has what I call wow factor. You put it in front of them and the camera phones come out, yet it costs very little to serve the guest. It's unbelievable. It's practically pure profit. It could be a byproduct of something else you're already selling. It's costed out already in the cost of that other dish, and this is something that you can turn into something else and make some flair out of it. That's a cash cow. You can't have too many of those. Yeah. So I had a pizza. My first place was a wood-fired pizzeria. My biggest cash cow was garlic knots. We've all seen these things, right? Yeah. We made our own dough every single day from scratch, and we'd roll out we'd portion out the exact same dough ball. We'd weigh it. It would go through a dough roller, and it would always overlap the pizza pan by about a ½ inch. So we got the idea that we're just going to cut that trimming with a pizza wheel, one of those cutters, and my staff are going to tie those things into knots. We're going to brush them with a little olive oil, sprinkle a little, minced garlic, a little Parmesan cheese on there, bake them in the wood-fired brick oven. They're going to grow into these giant knots. And we put them in this cone-shaped basket. We charge $10 a piece for them. The dough is already costed out in the price of the pizza I was selling. So I think the cost was about 35 cents. I had a ramekin, a marinara sauce, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of Parmesan and garlic. It was $10 for a cost of like 35 cents. We sold thousands of these things. So let's get back to the marketing idea. Very old school, but it worked. So I printed up these business cards, 4-color cardstock business cards with a professional photo of the garlic knots on there. I came up with this crazy copy that said, fantastic, stupendous, amazing, absolutely free garlic knots. And in the corner, it said $10, $10 value, blah, blah, blah. I went out into the community, 5-mile radius, whatever, and I approached non-competing businesses like tanning salons and bed and breakfast inns and retail stores and car washes. And I met the owner, the manager, and I said, hey, I'm opening up this restaurant and I'd really love to give you these coupons, value added for your customer, absolutely free. They just need to come in. If you stamp the back so I know where they're coming from, I'll give you 10% back in trade for every dollar that comes through the door. So the cost of the 35-cent garlic knot, the average check was $80 every time someone redeemed one of these things. It was unbelievable. So then I said, wow, this is really working. Some of these I called them strategic partners, were sending me like $15,000 in new business every 3 months. Wow. I had, 5 or 6 that really worked. I had a few that were duds that didn't really do it, but I had 5 or 6 that really sent me business. So then I said, wow, how am I going to get these people back again? I gave them a great experience the first time. I want to get them back again. And to this day, I mean, I don't know if you guys play the lottery, but you can't go near a convenience store or supermarket without seeing the rolls of tickets at every checkout counter, and people are, they pull out the quarters and they're scratching. I'm like, wow, I should come up with a custom branded lottery ticket that has my restaurant's logo on it. Come up with some fancy name, scratch and win, blah, blah, blah. I branded it to my restaurant. And what's under those 5 little circles? Food. There's one winner on every ticket. Every ticket was a winner. And we didn't tell the customer that, but they were passed out in the check presenters after the person paid the check. Hey, we got this fun new promotion. I hope you win, and the person pulls out the quarter and they might scratch off the first 2, try again. And then they win. What do they win? One of my cash cows. So for the cost of 35 or 50 cents, they come in, they spend another $80. They put it in their wallet. They put it on the refrigerator. Did that for a couple of years. It was phenomenally successful. And granted, that's an old school marketing method, but it was one of the best things we ever did. And it was tons of fun too, and the customers loved it.
Old school works for a reason.
Sometimes it does. I
did a video this morning on Instagram. I think I posted on LinkedIn too. I was at a little coffee shop. It's near my house. It's about a mile away. It's a brand new shop. And it's got a cool little vibe inside. You can buy all sorts of tchotchkes for around the house. Like my wife will probably end up, spending thousands since Pier 1 on now. But I'm sitting there and it's on a road that I didn't know had this much traffic because it's near our house. And it's a 1-lane road each way, 2 lanes total. And the cars going by. And I'm just watching literally in an hour, 200, 300 cars go by. And it's like, 7 a.m. And I'm thinking, man, if I'm the person that owned this, the only thing you could really do that make a big impact, have somebody out there with a giant arrow holding it up. Your cup, 1 cup of coffee free, first cup free. Right. They have them walk in because I'm like, man, half these people are driving by here and going to Dunkin' or McDonald's or Starbucks, God forbid, somewhere like that, they get their coffee. But I think those tactics work. But Donald, we talked about websites a minute ago. What are you seeing out there? I mean, there's now an importance. I mean, 2 years ago, websites obviously need to be important, but now with the pandemic, menus are on the websites more than they were then. Online ordering is much more prevalent now. What are you seeing?
You know, there's so many good options out there, and the website nowadays, I mean, you can get plug and play templates. Squarespace is probably one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I've seen those.
You know, and I love Squarespace because, I mean, they have, number one, they got restaurant templates. I mean, and it's like, you don't have to be, I remember like years ago, you had to pretty much had to hire someone. It would cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, have someone design your website.
That's right.
Now Squarespace, man, you can get started pretty fast, and you can actually get a pretty decent looking website up and running within a day. And
yeah, I think Bento Box is pretty good too. I don't know if you've seen
Bento Box is awesome too. I mean, just like I said, but there's some certain things about a website that you have to have. Number one, I would say this is like the number one mistake I see most restaurants do. They put a beautiful picture on the front of their website, and what do you call it above the fold? It's like when it first pops up, beautiful picture of the restaurant, but it's empty.
No.
Nobody
in it.
They had nobody's in it. Man, I tell you, man, that's a beautiful looking restaurant, but there's no energy because people are energy. Yeah. So take down those boring pictures. I mean, I know you put a lot of money into that bar design, and it looks really great, but it's so much better if you have people in there. Yep. And the next thing you should have is not only have a strong, high energy picture, but then tell me your why. Tell me your why statement. You know, and we talk about this in marketing a lot. You know, come off strong with like, why do I do what I do? Tell me why you open the restaurant, why you're doing what you do. And then come at me with your menu. And one of the things I'd always tell people too is on your website menus, don't put the pricing.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, because people have a preconceived kind of threshold. You know, like, I don't know about you, but like in Kentucky, what would you say is like the price you would pay for meatloaf at a restaurant?
I mean, it's probably gonna be $11 and $12, I would think.
So like if I'm an upscale place and you go to my website and I have $18 for meatloaf, right away you're like, oh my God, $18 for that's outrageous. You've already hit your price threshold. So I always tell people, don't put prices on your menu online because people automatically have sticker shock for sometimes, because we all have a threshold of what we want. Then after that, you want, again, really strong, high energy pictures of your food with people. Then you want to have some testimonials, social proof. Yep. And then of course you want to have your location with an easy hit button where you can get directions and have your contact information. That's pretty much all you need. You don't need this huge elaborate BS story, but just make it short, simple, make it really aesthetically pleasing with energy. And energy comes from people. That's the thing I would say.
I was telling an operator the other day, we were talking about this on a conversation and about menus and their website, because they had asked, hey, what do you see from our website you don't like? And I said, well, number one, you don't need a picture. I'm on your menu. You've got a menu on your site. It's good. I like how it flows. I like how it organized. There's not a single picture of the food. I said, you want to know the easiest way to get pictures? And this kills two birds with one stone. And it hits what Donald said. Get on Facebook, get on Instagram and say, hey, contest, $50 gift card. We want a picture of you with your favorite item from the restaurant. I guarantee you a lot of your followers have a picture of you in their burger, whatever. And just have a disclaimer. This may be used in our marketing. By submitting below, you're agreeing to that, blah, blah, blah. I said, now all of a sudden you get that. So now your menu is the XYZ burger, and it's Carrie S says it's the bomb, and it's got her eating it, and it's a big picture. My daughter's 19, takes better pictures than my full-time photographers I know on her iPhone.
Exactly. Yeah, user-generated content is probably the most powerful social media tactic you can use.
And then you mentioned testimonials. That was my other thing. I said, go to your Facebook, go to Yelp, go to TripAdvisor, find testimonials on certain items and put those below there on that menu item.
Exactly.
Okay. So Roger, wrapping up, what would you, and by the way, thanks guys for your time. This has been great content. This is stuff what restaurant operators need to hear it. Wrapping up, Roger, one or two major tips. Talking to a restaurant owner about their menu, about something that they're overlooking. I know you talked about the cash cows. That's huge. Mm-hmm. I love that. I got a client of mine who does what do they call them? Brisket tacos. It was Taco Tuesday. He likes to have his ribs look a certain way, not brisket, I guess, rib tacos. And they'd have these ribs come out that were deformed. He's like, we wouldn't serve them, and we would didn't want to throw it away. So they started making tacos. So to them, it was like, we were already going to throw this away. It's a cash cow. What are a couple items of closing that you would tell operators to really dig in and look at?
Yeah, we didn't really discuss this, but so much of this industry is obsessed with that all, magical food cost percentage. And although that's important, you get a low food cost from, I mentioned earlier, standard portion controls, efficient ordering, low waste, theft, and spoilage, a very profitable menu, and cash cows. You put all those things together, you're going to have a really solid food cost. But the obsession with the food cost, they're confusing profit dollars with food cost. I mean, I would rather sell a steak all day long with a 40% food cost and an $18 or $20 profit than I'd sell a pizza with a 22% food cost and a $10 profit. And that is lost on so many operators. So yes, you want a low food cost because of the things I mentioned, but don't be obsessed with food cost. It's what each item contributes to the bottom line. And if you're getting a high profit with a high food cost, there's nothing wrong with that. I mentioned earlier, you might be filling your seats and wondering why your bank account's not growing. It's all the things we discussed today. And I think all those things that we talked about are the magic formula to, strong menu design and increasing profitability in your operation.
And I like what you mentioned also, because you made me think of a friend of mine I went to college with who was a major league pitcher. And when I would walk on campus, he would put his hand on my head. His fingers would touch my ears. No lie. Like, look at that.
There you go. Right. Palm the basketball and dunk it.
When you were saying that, I was picturing him taking the cheese to put on something. Like, he would grab a lot more cheese than my little hands.
Hell yeah.
Well, that was a pet peeve of mine. I had a pizza place and I'd watch people over cheesing pizzas. There'd be like 30 pepperoni on there when it should only have 20 pepperoni, and everybody was different. It's like I had to institute these standards so that every person, had a photo and a description and were taught and were monitored on how to make every dish. And every new hire got trained in the standard portion controls. It's so critically important. This is a business of 1,000 details. I say it all the time, but some of these things are pretty critically important to your bottom line.
Exactly.
I agree. Okay, Donald, closing points. What's a couple of things we need to keep an eye out for that we might not have dug into enough?
Your menu doesn't matter if you don't know what it costs. Okay.
Thank you. Hallelujah.
Yeah. So I get calls all the time. Hey, Donald, my food cost is 34%. Is that good? I'll say, I don't know. And they go, what do you mean you don't know? I go, what's your theoretical? And they go, I don't know. I go, that's the problem. Theoretical is like your real world food cost, or your actual, your perfect world food cost. And there's always, most restaurants, and I've done this every time I go speak, I'll ask an audience, no matter where I'm at, how many people in the crowd know the cost of everything on the menu down to the penny? You'd be shocked. 3% raise their hand. Only 3%.
Wow.
I said, that's the problem right there. Because here's the thing. You call me and say, Donald, my food cost 34%. Is that good or bad? I don't know. What's your theoretical? All right. Well, if you say, well, my theoretical, my perfect world is 25, then actually, okay, 34 is bad, right? If you say, well, my theoretical is 32%, 34% is pretty good then. Like Roger says, high, low food cost doesn't really matter. It really, really depends on what your theoretical is. Because theoretical tells me the gap. Here's a sad statistic everyone should take note of. The average restaurant in the United States, the gap between theoretical and actual food cost, 9%. That's a lot of money on the table that you could easily pick up.
So meaning, to break that down in like guys like my term, they theoretically should be at 30. They're actually at 39, which means they think they got 9% more in their pocket, and they don't.
Yeah. Now, can you hit theoretical? Usually no. But, because we do, that would say that I'm never make a mistake. We don't have any waste. We don't have any, things that get thrown out or, perishable items. It's not realistic. Yeah. But you can get within 2 points. Yeah. So like if you said, hey, Donald, my food cost is 39 and we figure out your theoretical is 30, I say, well, Matt, we got some work to do. Yeah. Now, when you get to 33, hey, man, we're doing pretty good now. Yeah. And it's just like losing weight. That last 1 or 2 points is the hardest to lose, Well,
that is if you even take regular inventory. I'm sure, Donald, you would also say that so many restaurants think inventory is walking around figuring out what the order is that week. Yeah. It's not calculating the true value of your goods on hand at any given point in time and doing it consistently so that you can track your food cost and stay in a sweet spot. So few restaurants do that. And they need to.
Yeah. So it's like I'm so shocked that people number one, don't know the cost of everything on their menu. Number two, they don't, like Roger said, they don't even take inventory.
Yeah, it's from my background of knowing the boat and RV business and also the car business.
Yeah.
It's comical because that's the huge thing. I remember I was talking to a buddy of mine one time who owns a bunch of car dealerships and has a lot of money. And he's like, Matt, if you own a Chevy or a Ford or a Dodge or a Chrysler and you go out of business, you typically have a drug or a gambling problem because every month when you sell, like if August is just ending and August you sold this many cars and you did this many this many hours of warranty labor and retail labor, the next month Chevy will tell you your payroll needs to be this. Obviously your rent and your electric bill are the same, but here's all of your incidentals. If you do this and then you sell this many cars, this is your numbers 2 months. And it's the same way. I mean, imagine if Chevy was just building cars like, you know what? 41.
Yeah, I think we can get 10 grand for that. You know, you think Apple makes an iPhone goes, I think we can get 700 for this. What do you guys think? I think that sounds good.
Yeah. I remember in the boat business, one of our manufacturers, their average boat had a pack in it of 8,000 for marketing. So they knew their cost of manufacturing the boat. And then they were a heavy marketer with Bass Boat, with the Bassmaster Classic and BASS and all that kind of stuff. So they had an $8,000 pack in there. That was the marketing, because that was the big part of that business, is getting out there on TV and everywhere else.
Do you know that all your food service vendors have a pad too? Everything a food service vendor sells you has a pad. They never, even though they'll tell you they'll sell you at their cost, they always, all their buyers at every food service distributor puts in a pad. They cannot sell it below what their cost is.
Yep.
Yeah, everything has a pad in there. If you're smart, you should know what a pad is.
Yep. So
I love these kind of conversations. I take notes like crazy.
I do as well.
I know I got tons of notes here.
I was doing the same thing.
It looks like I've been watching the Outer Banks Netflix series. It looks like the one map they found to find the Golden Cross.
I love that show. I can't believe we went through the whole season like a couple of weeks ago, and now I got to wait a whole year for it to come out again. I burned through it in like 3 days.
I got Outer Banks mixed up with Manifest. And my daughter told me there's like a 4th season of Manifest somewhere on Hulu or whatever. And so I'm in second season of Outer Banks like Sunday or Saturday. And I get done with it. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, no, there's not 2 more seasons. That's done. I'm like, oh my gosh. I binge watched the whole damn thing.
It was
now powerful. You're stuck. Now you're like stuck in anticipation. Yeah.
I know. Yep.
Well, cool. So fellas, I appreciate your time. Roger, what's the best way people can look you up and find you and get all your great content online?
RestaurantRockstars.com. If you like podcasts, you can sign up for free on the website itself, or subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, that sort of thing. And if you have any particular questions, you can reach me personally. My email address is Roger, ROGER, at restaurantrockstars.com. And I love talking shop with operators. Cool.
That's easy enough. And Donald, how about you?
You can find me at therestaurantcoach.com. Also, like Roger and Matt, I have a podcast, the Restaurant Coach Podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Player FM, and Google Podcasts. And of course, you can reach me directly to Donald at therestaurantcoach.com.
Cool. And I'm Matt Plapp. I'm easy, mattplapp.com. You can find our brands, America's Best Restaurants, and restaurant marketing that works from there. And I have a podcast. We have 2 of them, I guess, technically. So if you want to check those out, one we shoot in person. I'm actually flying to San Diego in 2 weeks to shoot 5 episodes out there. And then the other one we do on online with guys like Donald and Roger, who have both been on there. So fellas, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Thank you, guys.
That was super fun.
And, operators, you made it through the pandemic. If you're still around, you're a badass in the restaurant world.
You are.
The hardest working people, the hardest hit people out there. Keep doing it, but please do yourself a favor. Reach out to experts like Roger, like Donald. Read books, listen to podcasts, because there's a lot of people out there giving out information that'll help you get to the next level. That's all I got. See you guys later.
Thanks again.
See you guys.
Nice to meet you, Donald. Thank you. See you, Matt.